everyone! Meet Marina Ovsyannikova. She's an activist and a pacifist. She's against war, she's for peace, she's against deceptive propaganda, she's against Putin's policies, and she's against sanctions. Certainly, she wants the sanctions imposed on Russia by the whole world to be lifted.
I'd like to add a very important thing. Now very many Russians are suffering as much as Ukrainians do. Certainly, they are not under everyday strikes, but the fact that Europe, even the whole world, has implemented such wide-ranging sanctions against Russian people is very frightening, because the scale of anti-Russian sentiment has become immense. You see, not only power elite and oligarchs are suffering from these sanctions, but also common people.
Let's start with the beginning. Here she is saying to BBC channel that she hopes that her sacrifice wasn't in vain and that she hopes very much that people will open their eyes. She is also saying that she feels pity for her mother, who watches TV programs of Russian propagandist Solovyov and who is simply brainwashed by the state propaganda. In this video fragment, she is saying that everything that is happening in Ukraine is a crime and Russia is the aggressor state, but only one person must bear responsibility for this according to her. This is Vladimir Putin. This is awesome, isn't it? Putin does this, Putin does that. He's done and continues doing this every day, every hour, every minute, simultaneously, with firearms, tanks, artillery, multiple rocket launchers, with ships, planes, cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles. He does this from the territory of Russian Federation as well as from the territory of Belarus. And according to Ovsyannikova, only one person is responsible for this. How has she made such a conclusion? Let's have a look at her life story. There isn't much information about Marina that you could learn here, but the main theme is how long she worked at Channel 1 Russia. It's 19 years. She was an honest journalist for 19 years working at Channel 1 Russia. It sounds like an oxymoron. She did this for 19 years with her eyes open, unlike her mother, and apparently with her mouth shut. She watched top journalists in the country quit their jobs at central channels as a protest, when Putin only started strengthening his power and was preparing for elections and vote rigging. She watched a disloyal businessman being put in prison for 14 years. She saw how they were giving publicity to the fact that the president's close friends were being appointed as the heads of the largest oil and gas producing companies. She saw them killing a journalist who had been gathering facts about war crimes in Chechnya for the president's birthday. She saw how they were giving publicity to Alexander Litvinenko's murder, to the war in Georgia. She saw real opposition politicians disappear from the state channels. She saw how they were giving publicity to the protests in Moscow that had broken out because of the violation of the constitution, which restricts the possibility to be elected as a president more than twice. She saw how they were giving publicity to the revolution in Ukraine, annexation of Crimea, war in Donbass, MH17 downing in Donbass, Boris Nemtsov's murder, war in Syria, amendments to the constitution that allowed Putin to participate in the so-called presidential elections in 2024, and many other things. What is dead may never die, or even more so, be reborn. What all these people have been doing is lying to people on TV. All this hasn't been happening randomly. These lies are purposeful and thought out. Their goal is to instill a certain thought and to impose a necessary opinion on
on a certain matter. These people haven't been journalists anymore. They've been working for robbers, murderers, and war criminals. They've been creating parallel universities in the minds of their viewers and spreading their lies all over the world. And if Putin is a Horcrux, a fragment of Hitler's soul by his ruthlessness, these beasts are followers of his minister of propaganda, and there must be a trial and a punishment for all the crimes committed by collective Ovsyannikova. But for now, what Ovsyannikova calls a sacrifice is a fine of about $250. This is what she's got for a live performance on Channel 1 Russia at prime time. All these reflections would make sense provided that we believed Kremlin, that controls all the federal channels, that this was a live broadcast. In other words, we must believe Kremlin that it actually has live broadcasts. But why do they need live broadcasts at all if everything that has been broadcasted before has been rigidly filtered and manipulated? By comparison, Ildar Dadin, whose case wasn't given publicity to at the channel where Ovsyannikova worked, was sentenced to 3 years in jail for a similar performance outside. He also disappeared from all the media sources in Russia. As it turned out, he was tortured and bullied in prison. This is what he got for protesting outside, not at a channel with tens of millions viewers. And Marina Ovsyannikova is now speaking at world channels and telling everyone that Russians are all sweetness and light. These are the Russians who in 2014 shouted all together, "Crimea is ours," and 71% of whom has supported war in Ukraine as at the 5th of March 2022. These are also the Russians who are at war in Ukraine right now. Don't believe the propaganda, they are lying to you here. These are the words that must be written full screen as a warning if Marina Ovsyannikova is speaking.